Hi, I'm Sian Bayne and welcome to the Old Anatomy Lecture Theatre here at the University of Edinburgh. This is in the old Teviot Medical School, which was opened in 1884. And we've got a new state-of-the-art medical school now elsewhere in the city, but this space retains much of the mysterious glamour of its past. There's an anatomy museum here in the building, and it's famous, among other things, for holding the skeleton of William Burke, the notorious Edinburgh murderer and resurrection man. Medical research and teaching flourished here in Edinburgh in the early 19th century, as it still does today, but at that time there wasn't a large enough legal supply of dead bodies to satisfy the demands of all the anatomy students and their teachers. And William Burke and his collaborator William Hare filled this grim gap in the market by murdering 16 local people and selling their bodies to the until then hugely popular Edinburgh anatomist and teacher Dr. Robert Knox for use in his lectures. Burke was eventually tried and executed, and his body was itself publicly dissected in what was an extremely well-attended anatomy lecture. It's perhaps a bit of a grim story to be beginning our MOOC with, and certainly we take a far less grotesque approach to the gathering of resources for our teaching and research these days. But I think the story does illustrate something of the history and the power and symbolic significance of the lecture as a kind of touchstone for the academic teaching method. And it's not surprising to see that lecture approach perpetuated into the new modes of teaching. The MOOC video lecture is just one example. As the Anatomy Lecture Theatre and Museum demonstrate, by looking to the past, we can throw some really interesting light on our current practices as teachers and as lecturers and as educators. And that's really what this first week of the MOOC is trying to do, by looking back to some key issues and debates that were discussed in the literature around the late 1990s and early 21st century. That was recent history, but still early days for our field. We're asking you to look at these readings and ideas within the context of an overarching theme for this week and for next week, which is that of utopias and dystopias. So how do these early discussions within e-learning and digital education mesh with broader social preoccupations, with the idea of an ideal future society enabled by technology, a utopia, versus the nightmarish vision of a future society dominated by malign technologies, a dystopia? A binary opposition like utopia and dystopia, however, can only really take us so far in thinking about the complex social contexts of digital education. So this week we're also offering you a reading from Daniel Chandler's web essay on technological determinism as something to think with. And the idea that technologies like these can still be seen as the principal factor driving societal change is still really quite widespread in discussions within the field of digital education and e-learning. So there are a lot of rich and complex and varied ideas running through the course this week in the films that you're looking at and the readings that you're doing. And I hope you're really going to enjoy discussing these in the Coursera discussion forum and in your blogs and on Twitter too. And I and the rest of the course team will see you at the end of the week in our first Google Hangout, where we'll have a chance to raise some of these questions and issues live with you.